we acknowledge the first Australians as the traditional custodians of the continent, whose culture is the oldest living culture in human history. We pay our respects to elders, past, present and emerging, and we respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land. We extend our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. They share the memories, traditions and hopes of the traditional ancestors with the new generations today and in the future. We would also like to thank them for looking after this land for thousands of years.
Hello everybody, welcome to our Threatened Species Day Poem Forest workshop for primary students. We are so glad that you're all here with us. My name is Lauren Reeve and I am the Poem Forest producer at Red Room Poetry, and I would love to start by acknowledging that I am zooming in today from Gadigal country, and I would love to pay my respects to Gadigal elders past, present and future. And to all the First Nations students and teachers who might be joining us today, we're so grateful that you are here. I've been connecting with Gadigal country this week by walking and noticing which native plants flower in the springtime. So spending lots of time with wattles and grevilleas. I wonder if you've noticed any flowering native plants on the country that you're coming from.
Jingiwala Jarjams. That means hello kids in my language. I'm a Bundjalung man from the north coast of New South Wales, although I've spent the majority of my life on the very far south coast on Yuin country, but acknowledging today that I stand and live on Darawal country, right in Alauri, Wollongongo, or the Illawarra where Wollongong sits. I pay my respects to the elders of this place, both past and present, and extend that respect to any of you First Nations students joining in, and acknowledge the sacred and important places that we all join from today. And we're going to give you a moment to reflect on country and the country that you're on, and how you connect with it, and how it's important to acknowledge the country that we're on and we're privileged to live upon. So engaging with the questions, do you know what First Nations land you live on? And how do you and your school acknowledge and care for country? Now, I've been acknowledging country by waking up with the sun every day and touching the salt water and being grateful for being alive and being living in such a beautiful place. Now we're going to have a series of polls for you guys to interact with. And our first poll I'm going to throw at you now. So just select one of the four choices here. What's important to include in an acknowledgement of country? Who you are, where you are, specific language groups and acknowledgement of elders, or all of these. We'll give you a few seconds. Wow, so the majority of you guys chose all of the above, which is a bright gold star, because all of these are important. But for an acknowledgement to be meaningful, we have to include all of those ingredients, who we are, where we are. But make sure to be specific about the language group and always acknowledge elders.
So we are here today to celebrate Threatened Species Day and to also write a nature poem about a place or a piece of nature that is special to us. And then enter that poem into the Poem Forest Prize. We will plant a native tree for your poem and you'll be in the running for lots of cool prizes. So before we get into some writing activities, we're about to meet two really exciting speakers. First, we'll see a video from Red Room Poetry's artistic director, Tamron Bennett. And then we will go live to the Australian Botanic Garden's Education and Engagement Lead, Melissa Slapp, who's going to show us where the palm forest is growing.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here as part of this Threatened Species Day workshop and for helping us to grow the palm forest. My name's Tamron Bennett. I'm the Artistic Director at Red Room Poetry, and I come from a long line of women named after plants and trees. So Palm Forest is a project really close to my heart, and I'm so grateful that you're all here to be a part of it. Before we begin, I'd like to give my respects to elders and custodians of Dharawal country, where I'm coming to you from today. I also give my respects to future leaders and all First Nations people joining us for the workshop today. Palm Forest grew from a seed of an idea and also listening really deeply to what a lot of young people are asking for as part of the School Strikes for Climate and all the valuable action that you're doing around climate protection and restoration and conservation. So we really wanted to make a project that was about valuing your voices and finding a way that our voices can make a difference when it comes to environmental action. So for every poem that you create today and across the project of Palm Forest, we teamed up with the Australian Botanic Gardens to help plant a native tree at Mount Annan. So the Australian Botanic Gardens team are going to tell you more about where the palm forest is growing in the garden and some of the threatened species that the palm forest is helping to protect in this really valuable conservation work. We're then going to listen to some inspiration and poetic activities with Dakota Feirer and the Red Room Poetry team to help you create your own poems. Once we receive your poems, we'll be able to publish those in our Palm Forest library and ensure that a native tree is planted in the palm forest for you and for future generations. Thank you so much again for being a part of the workshop today, for tuning in and for listening in this safe creative space. Thanks everyone. Can't wait to read your poems soon.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name's Mel Slapp and today I am on Dharawal land. I'm the Education and Engagement Lead at the Australian Botanic Garden in Mount Annan, which is in southwestern Sydney, New South Wales. I wonder if any of you have been there before? It's part of the Australian Institute of Botanical Science and we're all about discovering, understanding and protecting plants. Now today we're here to talk about threatened species. And while usually your mind might go to an animal, there are a lot of plant species out there that are threatened and need our help. Now you might look at this image and think it's boring, ugly, or you might not have many feelings about it at all. I myself find it a really beautiful place. It's inspiring, it's calming, and it's a favorite place for me to go on a lunchtime walk because this is at my work. This is the Cumberland Plain woodland, and it's a type of woodland not found anywhere else in Australia. It is also under threat and listed as a critically endangered ecological community. The Cumberland Plain woodland once occurred across Western Sydney. It's been looked after for thousands of years by our First Nations people. And unfortunately, farming, urban development, and invasive species have now reduced these woodlands to just small areas. Another critically endangered community that we have on our site is the Western Sydney dry rainforest. It's also specific to Western Sydney, and it's mainly found on hilly country. It's also under threat from urbanisation, fragmentation, and weeds. Now, the main enemy of these endangered communities is a weed called African olive. And on this next slide, you'll see how this plant has spread across the Mount Annan summit over a 30-year period. So this is a big hill at Mount Annan at the gardens, and you can see the spread of this plant across that hill. And it's a weed or an invasive species. And the reason it's so good at taking over native habitat are for a few reasons. Each tree can live for up to 100 years. One tree can produce 25,000 olives in a single year, which means it can spread a lot. And they grow really close together and create a canopy that blocks out sunlight, stopping anything from surviving underneath it. Now, at the Australian Botanic Garden, we're lucky to have both of the critically endangered ecological communities there, the woodland and the dry rainforest. And at the Australian Plant Bank, which is another scientific component of our institute, we study these plants, and our research has assisted in restoring the woodland and rainforest. We collected seed from almost every type of plant from these habitats, and we study them and we store them in our seed vault. We've also propagated these special native seeds, planted seedlings, and dispersed seeds into new areas. And we've removed over 15 hectares of African olive. And you can see here in just a 2-year period how we've reduced the amount of African olive over time on that Mount Annan summit. So we're allowing the land to breathe again, get it back to its former glory, and this is where our wonderful palm forest gets to take centre stage. Now, all trees that are planted on site at our palm forest have been grown from seed in our very own nursery. And we've grown a variety of plants that make up the different types that you can find in the Cumberland Plain woodland and the Western Sydney dry rainforest. I was able to visit our palm forest site last week, as it's within my 5-kilometre radius, and I went there for some outdoor exercise. And I took a walk through the Botanic Garden, went to our palm forest site, and here's some photos I took where you can see the hundreds of trees that have already been planted, thanks to the palms that have been submitted through the palm forest competition. The white tubes around them are there to protect them from the elements and any foraging animals while they're still so young and vulnerable. And as they'll get bigger and stronger, we'll be able to take those away. Now, I'd like to share a video of the palm forest with you. It's so exciting to see the palm forest there growing, thriving, and getting bigger every day as we write new poems to support it. Now, today, I'd like to take you through a short exercise to get us thinking about nature and poetry. And I'd like you all to close your eyes and think of a place in nature that you like to go to. And if you can't think of a specific place, perhaps you'd like to think about the woodland or the rainforest that we've just been speaking about. Now, with your eyes still closed, take a big breath in and a slow breath out. I'd like you to think about all the things that you might be hearing and even things that you might be able to smell. Open your eyes now and imagine you're still there in your little pocket of nature, and I want you to look all around you. What can you see? Are there really tall trees? Is the canopy closed? Or are there pockets of blue sky coming through? Are there any people with you, or are you on your own? And is your nature escape filled with only living things? Or are there perhaps some non-living structures there, like a bench or a building? How does this place make you feel? Now I want you to imagine sharing your special place in nature with someone. How would you describe it? And how would we ask people to help protect it? Keep those thoughts in your mind for a couple of minutes. If you'd like, you can use a pen and paper or an electronic device that you're using to write down some notes if you've already been inspired. Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoy the rest of the workshop.
Thanks, Mel. So great to have someone on the ground where Poem Forest is taking root. Now, Mel helped us teleport with our minds to that special place. Now, we don't want to take you from there. Thinking in your mind that you're still in this place, we're going to give you a minute to write. How do you feel when you're here? Are you curious? Are you happy? Maybe you're sleepy. Maybe you're excited. We'll give you 1 minute to just write how you feel when you're here. Okay, so hopefully a lot of feeling words, emotion words going on there. So for the next minute, as Mel asked us to, I want you to describe what do you hear and what do you smell when you're here? Are there certain birds? Are there certain flowers? Just describe those sensations. What do you smell and what do you hear? We'll give you another minute. Okay, now I hope you guys are describing and using your words to describe your place and get in touch to the patterns and the animals and the plants of your place. Now I want to know, what kind of place in nature did you choose? And we're going to use a poll. Did you choose a beach, a forest, a garden, the sky, or somewhere else? So we've got a forest, a third of us, beach, but somewhere else. I'm really excited to hear your poems and producing such a variety of places. Now, what we just did then is an activity that I had to do when Red Room Poetry invited me to be part of the Poem Forest project. And I thought of a specific place that I had a lot of memories. And this place was on a freshwater river on the south coast, a place just near Yarraji. And this was a bit of a gathering place for me as a kid, but for the old people as well. Now, on these river bends is a tree called the river she oak, big, tall, oaky trees with thin leaves, not like your traditional gum tree. Now, I want you to listen very carefully because I'm going to read my poem and listen to some of the techniques or what I'm describing in the poem. Somewhere in between beginning and end are shaded beds on sacred bends, made in layers of leaves resembling strands of ancient sacred ladies. Where sweet waters ebb and soft northern winds blow, faceless maidens bellow, my arms and Nawi follow, as their rhythms sing me home upriver. Here spirits creep amongst echoes, keep dry eyes on sweet water's tides, watch them rise before I fall. For saltier waters dissolve river borders, for once stay on course. In branches, old law women call, guiding my oars toward she-oaked shores. Wrinkled bark mimics brown skin, carved marks are real maps of kinship. Names, voices, and stories all told in sacred song, and grandmothers of she-oak hold sacred bends strong. Singing recedes from the tips of her scale leaves, down to a humming heartbeat in the earth beneath my feet. Grandest mother, I'm sorry we never had a chance to meet. I'm sorry your roots are far deeper than mine. For now I hope this bed of tears will suffice. So swallow me at the end of every apology and embrace my body in the roots of Casuarina. Melodic, medicinal symphony of timeless ancestress. My name has been sung by her for eternity. She oak, she knows what is done and yet to come. Earthen maternal sounds of a soft wind song sing me into the ground, upriver where my bones belong. Now, since it's Threatened Species Day and I'm reflecting on that poem, that she oak tree is also a threatened species, but it also provides habitat and food for the black cockatoo. And I have one of those birds' feathers here, reminding me that the land and country is all interconnected. And if one thing becomes threatened, that's the important piece of the puzzle for some others that may affect all of us that live and inhabit the land and the earth.
Now, the Poem Forest Prize, where you will all be submitting your poems at the end of the workshop today, has a few different categories, and one of those categories is the Threatened Species Prize. So if you've come to the workshop with a threatened species in mind to write about, then we're so excited for you to be eligible for that category within the prize. If you didn't come prepared with a threatened species to write about, then we'd really love you to write about the special place that has meaning and connection for you, and you'll still be eligible for other categories within the Poem Forest Prize.
So we really hope you may consider a threatened species, whether it be an animal or a plant, in the place that you choose to write about. But for now, I want you to hear, what was your favorite part from my poem? Was it A, humming heartbeat in the earth beneath my feet? B, made in layers of leaves? C, keep dry eyes and sweet waters tides? Or D, wrinkled bark mimics brown skin? Another 5 seconds. So most of you, around half, chose A, humming heartbeat in the earth beneath my feet. Now A is an example of the poetic technique personification. So when we personify something, we describe something that's non-human using human behaviors or emotions. Other examples in those lines is alliteration, which made in layers of leaves. Now I want you guys to consider alliteration, and that is the use of one letter or sound across words consecutively. So choose one important word that you may have used to describe your place, and think of 2 more words that start with the same letter. Now write a whole new line using all 3 words. And some examples you may see on your screen: layers of leaves lie sleeping on the soil. We'll give you a minute or 2 for that. Good job, everyone. Now, half of you enjoyed the line that I use in my poem that personified the earth and personified country. Now we're going to give you an opportunity to personify your place. So to recap, personification is when we give non-human entities, trees, the earth, the sky, human qualities. Did the wind sing or did the sky breathe? Now write down a non-human character from your special place: tree, flower, animal, or a rock. Now write down a human action: crying, stretching, sleeping, laughing. Now write down a part of the human body: arms, heartbeat, or toes. Now write a line using personification, describing your non-human character with a human action or body part. Okay. Now we're building up all our ingredients for our poems. So before we go into some final writing time to bring all those ingredients together, I want to ask another poem. Now, it's about this idea of concrete imagery. Concrete imagery is when we be really descriptive. Now, I want you guys to answer which shows good concrete imagery here. A, the tree was beautiful. B, tall. C, wrinkled bark like brown skin. Or D, the tree was cool. Few seconds. Closing the poll now. So the majority of you guys chose the tree had wrinkled bark like brown skin. That's a good answer. Now, although words like beautiful, tall, and cool are fun, when we write our poems, we try to make people realize, wow, what a cool description. Or wow, I never thought of it like that before. Now, when I wrote wrinkled bark like brown skin, I tried to hone in really close and be really descriptive of what I saw in that tree and connected it to brown skin or the ancestors. Now we're going to give you some time to consider all those techniques and pull together a poem. You have at least now 4 lines. Now spend the next 3 minutes writing another 4 lines, telling us the story of your favorite place in nature and why is it special to you. Now I can feel all you guys writing some magnificent poems, and I can't wait to read them all. Don't forget to add a title and edit your poem for any final changes. Now Lauren's going to talk us how may we then submit Poem Forest Prize through the website.
Thanks, Dakota. Everyone, I'm so excited to read your Poem Forest poems. And I know that we haven't had heaps of time to write today. So if you need to spend some time after the workshop adding your final touches or editing your poem, and when you are ready to submit it to the prize, you'll go to the Red Room Poetry website, which is redroompoetry.org. And I'll show you on the screen where you need to go. Scroll down on our homepage to the Poem Forest featured project. Click on that, and you will come to some information, all our terms and conditions, all about Dakota. You can read Dakota's poem here, but click on the entry form button, and that will take you to where you need to submit your poem. And we'll collect a little bit of information from you on this page, your name and school, whether you live on Dharawal country, because there's a special prize category for those students. We'll get some details about your teacher or parent, and then we'll get your age category, which is the main prize category that exists. So you'll pop in what year group you were in, the title of your poem, copy and paste your poem into the text box, and here's the checkbox for whether you've written about a threatened species. If so, check that one. You can type in a reflection, agree to the terms and conditions, and click submit to submit your poem to the prize. We can't wait to see all of those arriving on our end this afternoon after the workshop. Now, to finish up, just before we go today, you've all had the opportunity to send through some questions for Dakota to answer. So thank you so much to all the schools who sent us questions. We're so excited to answer those for you today. But Dakota, how about we start this Q&A with the question, what is important, or why is it important that we're writing in conversation with the earth? Why are we writing about plants? And what motivates you to write about plants?
It's important that we write in conversation with the earth or the mother, because we all should have conversations with our birth mothers every now and then. And I see the earth as no different. Now, just because the earth, plants, animals don't talk like us does not mean they aren't in communication with us. So I never try to speak on behalf of earth or the environment, but I feel it's important to intervene and grant the opportunity to have a voice when we have so many threatened species, and the earth is affected by a lot of instances like climate change and so on. So it's important for us to acknowledge her sentience, that she's living, and that we have a responsibility to take care of her as she cares for us.
I love that all the students here today are taking on some of that responsibility and creating some of those actions through your words. So thank you all for the work you're doing. We have a question from Wilkins Public School, whose year 3 and 4 students are here with us today. Hi, Wilkins Public School. They have asked us, how do you start a poem? Or how do you become inspired to write poetry?
Okay, so, I only feel motivated to write poems if I'm writing about a real experience or some truthful reality. And that was very much the case with my Shiochor's poem. It was an experience I had in a very emotional event, and an awakening I had with these trees. And these poems start very fragmented. I have ideas that are kind of flowing around, and they usually flow in my mind for a few weeks or months until I finally sit down in front of a piece of paper and just chuck them on the page. I don't put them in any order, but then I enjoy ordering all these ideas and thoughts around. And I really don't call them poems, I call them reflections, because it's a way that I reflect on life and the teachings I've had in life. Yeah.
I love that answer, because sometimes I think if we don't write poems often, that we think, oh, a poem has to be about some huge big event or a huge amazing topic. But really, you're saying your poems come from a really personal experience. And it doesn't have to be huge. It can be a really small personal moment that's still really important.
Yeah.
Wilkins Public School also asked, what is the most important part of a poem? Is there a most important part of a poem?
I don't think so. I think the intention of the poem is the most important part. And you don't necessarily state your intention. That kind of comes through subconsciously or subvocally. And, my first intentions when I first started writing was to heal. And I always wrote poems in the beginning just for myself. And this was a way, as I said, reflect on my life, my experience, and externalize my emotions on the page. And poetry makes it safe to explore really deep themes and deep emotions. So I think for me, your intention behind that poem is the most important part.
And then it's really interesting to think how many other people who hear your poems receive that intention of healing, and that it also might be healing for the people listening. I love that.
I hope so.
We have a question from Lee Street State Special School, whose year 9 and 10 students are here today. Hi guys, thanks so much for coming. Their first question is, does Red Room Poetry work with people with disabilities? Now I might answer this one because I work at Red Room Poetry. So in 2020, we ran a project called Past and Present Pets, which you can find all the poetry and information about on our website. That project was in collaboration with Studio A, who are an art studio for artists with disabilities. And so we commissioned the Studio A artists to write poems that would be published alongside their drawings and paintings about their favourite animals and pets. So that's a really great one for all of the students at Lee Street State School to go and check out that project and the art and the poetry there. So hopefully we'll work with Studio A again soon. And the second part of Lee Street's question, which I'll direct back to you, Dakota, how do you think poetry helps people express their identity?
It's a great question, and I'm still thinking about it, though. As I mentioned before, poetry is this safe place to explore whatever you want. There's generally not a lot of rules. There's a lot of ways you can write poems, but each poet and each poem is as unique to the next. And as human beings, we are all unique and individual. And poetry is just an extension of your identity, and it's your unique thoughts. And it doesn't just express our identities, but sometimes it gives our identity room to breathe and grow and heal. And I think for me personally, it's strengthened my identity. It's given me room to, shed my skin like a snake and grow and get bigger and brighter. And it does more than just express, but it's a community as well that is accepting, equal, and it embraces you once you get up and give it a go.
Beautiful answer, Dakota. We might have time for one more question. It comes from Newbridge Heights Public School, whose year 3 and 4 students are with us today. Hi, Newbridge Heights. Thanks for your question. They've asked something that we've sort of covered, but maybe you can expand your answer. What made you begin to write poetry, and how did you create your poems? And maybe that feeds in a little bit to how did you go from writing a poem in your bedroom to being a professional poet?
Definitely not a professional poet, but I think I've had to reflect on, the very first poem I wrote, and I recall it being around your guys' age in year 5, year 6. And I vividly remember describing, so those who know, up in the North Coast in a town where I was born, Grafton, there's these jacaranda trees, and during this time, going into spring, they flourish, and it's the purple bulbs. So I remember describing in my poem the changing seasons and these bulbs dancing in the wind outside my window. And it was really a metaphor for me, that season changing and me leaving the North Coast and living on the South Coast. And so that was a bit of an awakening, and recalling that first poem, and realized that we're always living poetry. We are living in the present, and that is poetry. And just reflecting, and I find poetry a good way since the very beginning to reflect.
Oh, thanks so much, Dakota, and thanks for teaching us how to write our poems today. And thank you to all of you for being here. We hope you go and submit your poem to the Poem Forest Prize at redroompoetry.org. We'll be reading your poems all through the afternoon. So thank you to Dakota, and thank you to you all.
Thanks, guys.